Okay. This is a message on covenant. These are the covenants that I have found, and there are about 7 of them, and I don't know if there are more, but there are 7 covenants that God has made with people, and the covenant, I believe, is Berith, and there's different ways of spelling this, but that I believe is Berith, and it's basically a sacred contract or agreement between 2 or more parties. Um, yeah, sacred contract. So in other words, it's between God and His creation. The first one was Adam, where he basically said, "Be fruitful and multiply, and you'll have dominion over it." And this is Genesis 6:18, Genesis 9 through 17, and also in Sirach 44. But it starts out in Genesis 1:28 through 30, and Genesis 2:15 to 17. You can find the scriptures. But it was for Adam, and it was about fertility and having dominion over the earth. But do remember that Adam and Eve fell from grace by eating the apple. So they, because of falling from grace, they had to work their butts off in order, just like we do now, in order to get the food that we produce. And there would also be thorns and thistles, and the women would now have to go through childbirth because of breaking God's commandments. The second one is Noah and the earth. The rainbow came about in Genesis 9:13. So what happened is Noah and the earth. Noah, for those that don't know, and it seems to be a lot happening, and there's not a whole lot of background, in my opinion, with Genesis. I think that there's a big chunk of information missing. I think our Bible is off with that respect. I think that there has been a lot of stuff hidden from us. But what happened is the earth was flooded, and Noah and his family were saved out of it. But it will never be destroyed by flood again, was the covenant that God made with Noah and his family. And then there was the sign of the rainbow, that was God's covenant that He would not flood the world again. And it's the sign of salvation also is the rainbow. And they entered 2 by 2, and that was the unclean animals, and 7 of the clean. It's Genesis 9, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. And beasts were, this is when God made the beasts dread humans. And I find this interesting because this kind of leads that the beasts weren't afraid of humans before this. And also, I mean, and could this be undone in the tribulation time and have the fear of us be taken off? So that could be, but it's the covenant was for every living descendant. So and then the next covenant was Abraham, who came along, and it was threefold, and it was the covenant with Isaac, Jacob, and the descendants of them. God basically said, "Look at the stars; that your descendants will be like the stars, and that you will have a nation of descendants and worldwide blessing." Where my mind went is the stars represented those that are His descendants, like personal descendants. So I believe that there are more than obviously that won't make it to heaven, that aren't His descendants, that don't really light up the sky. But this is in Genesis 12:3. It's in 15 1 through 18, 17 1 through 27. Genesis 28 10 through 14. It's in Exodus 2:24, and it's in Sirach 44. But And basically, God bless those will bless those that bless his descendants, and curse those that curse his descendants. So it's a blessing and a curse. His seed inherits the land in the plain of Morah. Um, and this is what I find really interesting. This is the original land of the Israelites. And it goes from, it says, the river of Egypt. So the only river that's really in Egypt that's high up is the Nile River, and to the Euphrates River. And that is pretty much, that incorporates modern day Iraq, and it incorporates Lebanon and Syria and all these supposed people that are all fighting over Palestine. It was given to Abraham and his descendants. So, I mean, it says the Nile to Euphrates, and you can look this up. Um, in here, in it, I can't remember which one of these it's in it, but it says the river Egypt all the way to the Euphrates. So, um, and that Abraham would be the father of many nations, and to be fruitful, and to have kings ruling over. So David was basically the king over the land. God to all Abraham's people. So basically, God said, I'll be the God to all your people. Um, and the sign of this covenant was circumcision. So the next covenant that we're going to go over is Moses and Israel. Moses obviously was the one that lived in Egypt, or not lived in the, well, yeah, he did. He lived in Egypt as the prince, and then he broke off and he went 40 days and 40 nights into the desert. And God gave him the command to take the people and get out of there. And it was so he did take them out, and on Mount Sinai, the covenant law, liturgy, and an ordained priesthood. Um, so the ordained priesthood were originally the Levites. The Levites were the ordained priesthoods. Worship no other god, but this was in Exodus 19:24, Exodus 34:10, 27:28, and Deuteronomy. Looks like I wrote 5:28. Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. Sorry. Um, but he also wrote the Ten Commandments. Um, and if the people responded well to the commands, God would richly bless them as his chosen people. And these were his special chosen people. And then when he was coming down from the mountain, that's when he got furious and broke the stone tablets. So they were supposed to inherit the land. And as you know, they spent 40 years in the desert wandering, but God took care of them. They would follow the cloud and pillar of fire, and wherever it rested, they rested. But they never got to see the land of Canaan, because what happened is they sent out spies to the land of Canaan, and they were like, well, we can't take on the land of Canaan. There are these big rulers there. I believe that these were giants, and that they were huge, and so that's why they were scared and they came back. And then you have Aaron and his sons, and it was the perpetual ministerial priesthood. And before that was the Levites, but this was in Exodus 40:15, and Leviticus 2:13, and Numbers 18:19, and Jeremiah 33:21. But this this made Aaron and his sons the priesthood. They were the ones that kept all the priestly duties and the inner sanctum and all that, and the inner holy holies. So this is part 1, and I'm going to do part 2 in just a second. I just have to stop it at 10 minutes in order to make all this happen. So this is the first part.